Some discoveries just teach us about history, but others, they completely shake everything we thought we knew. Picture Jerusalem, ancient rocks, summer sunlight. Buried under centuries of dirt was something so old and so important that when it finally came to light, it challenged beliefs people had held for thousands of years. Before we continue, like this video, let's continue. For hundreds of years, the Valley of Hinnom sat quietly outside Jerusalem. People walked right past it every day. But hidden below was an object older than the Dead Sea Scrolls, older than Rome, older than Greece. It survived Babylon, Persia, Alexander the Great, the Roman Empire, Islamic empires, the Crusades, and the Ottomans. And carved on this ancient relic was a name and a blessing, written before Arabic even existed as a language. But to understand why this discovery is so explosive, you need to know how close we came to losing it forever. Summer of 1979. Professor Gabriel Barkay, one of Israel's top archaeologists, was running a teaching dig with school kids from the Begin Heritage Center. This wasn't supposed to be some major expedition. He just wanted to show kids how archaeology works. They were digging at Ketef Hinnom, overlooking the valley on the western edge of ancient Jerusalem. Barkay expected broken pottery, old bones, typical stuff, nothing special. But then one kid changed everything. 12-year-old Nathan was curious, energetic, maybe a little mischievous. He started tapping his hammer against the chamber wall, and suddenly a piece of limestone gave way. A hidden chamber opened up that hadn't been touched in thousands of years. Pottery, beads, bones, and tiny black metal cylinders poured out. Barkay knew immediately they'd found something incredible. A kid with a hammer had just uncovered a message sealed before Babylon conquered Jerusalem. The tomb was clearly for wealthy, important people from ancient Judah. It had carved benches and burial niches, a high-status family tomb used for over 100 years. And inside that hidden chamber, nothing had been disturbed. No grave robbers. No one had touched it since around 600 BC. Those two tiny silver scrolls were smaller than your fingernail. They were ancient amulets, the kind people wore around their necks or were buried with as symbols of faith. But these weren't ordinary. They were made with incredible skill, and their surfaces were covered in microscopic writing so tiny you couldn't read it without magnification. If there was text on these scrolls, it would be older than any biblical manuscript ever found. But they had to unlock the secret without destroy. The scrolls were so fragile they could crumble at the slightest touch. After 2,600 years underground, the silver had corroded into a delicate shell. The Israel Museum brought in their best conservators. For 3 years, they used micro-tools, special chemicals, and powerful magnification to slowly, carefully unroll the first scroll. Every millimeter took hours. One wrong move and everything would turn to dust. But finally, light touched words that hadn't been seen since the time of the prophet Jeremiah, more than 2,000 years ago. Ancient Hebrew letters carved into silver, perfectly preserved. When they unrolled the second scroll, there was no doubt. These were the oldest surviving pieces of biblical text ever found. Centuries older than the Dead Sea Scrolls, more than 1,000 years older than Islam. And what was written on them changed everything. The scroll contained the priestly blessing from the Book of Numbers, the same blessing Jewish priests have spoken for thousands of. May Yahweh bless you and keep you. May Yahweh make his face shine upon you. May he give you peace. The name of God, Yahweh, was right there, exactly as it appears in Scripture. The blessing was word for word identical. The structure matched perfectly. This wasn't some later version. This wasn't copied by medieval scribes. This was hard proof that the core of the Torah existed unchanged during the First Temple period. And here's where things get really interesting. Islamic theology claims that the Torah was corrupted long before Islam began. According to this teaching, Jewish people supposedly changed or lost parts of divine revelation, including the name of God, the blessings, and the covenant structure. But here's a piece of silver from the 7th century BC containing the divine name Islam says was never used in that form. It has the priestly blessing Islam says was modified. It shows the covenant formula Islam says was corrupted. This artifact is over 1,000 years older than the Quran. It's so ancient that it becomes historically impossible for the Torah to have been rewritten the way Islamic doctrine claims. The scroll is a silent witness across time, metal that can't burn, text that can't be changed, and its testimony directly contradicts Islamic claims with archaeological evidence. The name existed, the blessing existed, the covenant existed, exactly as Scripture records it today. Think about the craftsman who made this. He lived when the first temple still stood. He walked streets where the prophets preached. He heard priests give this blessing every day. He carefully carved these words into silver, a personal reminder of God's covenant. When he sealed that scroll, he thought it would last beyond his lifetime. He could never have imagined his work would one day challenge an entire world religion. After Professor Barkai published his findings, scholars worldwide agreed. This was the oldest biblical text in existence. Nothing older has ever been found. It proved Scripture during the First Temple period was already fully formed. It showed the covenant structure was well established. It confirmed the divine name was central to ancient worship. And most importantly, it demonstrated that the biblical text had not gone through the corruption that Islamic teaching claims. Because this text, engraved long before Alexander the Great, before the Roman Empire, before Mecca existed, matches the Torah we have today. Archaeology had spoken, and its voice can't be silenced. The Kenef Hinnom silver scrolls survived fires, invasions, earthquakes, wars, and empires. They slept through the rise and fall of nations. They witnessed the destruction of the First Temple, the exile, the rebuilding, the spread of Christianity, the expansion of Islam, and centuries of conflict. Buried for 2,600 years, preserved by time, discovered in our generation. If this discovery amazed you, smash that like button and share this video. Drop a comment. What other archaeological discoveries should we cover next? The evidence is in. The scrolls have spoken. History has delivered its verdict.